about communism, capitalism, Joseph Stalin, United States of America, and Soviet Union. You should know these vocab words already. This is prior knowledge. I have the definitions up here for you to reference. And I'm going to pass out this informational text, but to save paper, you're going to turn it over to the blank side, and you're going to create a concept map using these words. So you're going to try to connect the words with one another with your knowledge of what the word means. Okay? Okay, I'm going to give you guys a moment to try your best. There's no right way to connect these words. See what you guys come up with. Yes.
Are we only connecting the words on the screen, or are we also connecting the vocab words that are bolded in the text?
Only those ones for now. That's a good question.
Spell right there. Okay. We're writing to learn here. All these spelling matters.
All right, so it looks like we've all got something down. I like that they look different. That is okay. All right, so now I'm going to throw some new vocabulary your way, and you're not going to know the definitions of these words yet, but you're going to try your best to somehow put them in your concept map. And for this part of the exercise, you can turn to a partner next to you. So it looks like we have an even amount of students today, so you can turn to the person next to you, work with your partner to try to place these new vocabulary words into the words you already know. So please discuss.
I wish I put things farther apart now.
Yeah, me too. So I did something similar, like mine are subcategories.
Yeah.
In a way. And then I have this thing here that's like showing that they're divided. And so I put the Iron Curtain between the two countries, like thinking about the way it's separating them. But in a way, I think it should go closer, and I don't exactly. I guess it should go against communism because it was like an Iron Curtain that was to keep communism out. But it was really like around the Soviet.
I actually really like that.
Yeah, I guess it's hard because if you're doing it geographically, if you're doing it conceptually.
Yeah. And in a way, like, they're different. Like, this is a concept, and this is a concept, but this is geography, and this is geography. So, it's like, and actually it's sort of interesting, like, it's almost like if you equate the concept with the geography, then
Yes.
then those words make sense, containment and uncertainty.
That's true.
Communism.
But if you
Once again
don't
divided by the iron.
equate them, like how can you put an iron curtain around
I'm
an
gonna put that. Oh man. I'm gonna put that off the United States. The three countries. But they're still connected.
Except that then, see, I think that's part of what. And actually, it's odd. I just have to say this. It's really odd because I put Robert Frost down here because Frost had this like crazy idea that he was going to go visit
The
Stalin.
United States wanted
And like, but like, there's this right, but there's this way in which
All
like
right,
it's
class.
exactly.
For the sake of time, for the sake of time, we are going to move along. I like the thinking that I'm hearing. I like the way you guys are kind of trying to figure this out, and I appreciate that. Okay, so on the other side of your sheet, you have informational text. And in this informational text, you are going to find the new vocabulary as well as the vocabulary we've learned in the previous lesson. So you already know a lot of what we're going to read, and you'll be able to identify what these new words mean and possibly make your concept map more accurate. Okay, so as I'm reading, and you'll read along with me, I'll share with you how I annotated this informational text, and I encourage you to annotate what I say or add your thoughts and make connections. All right, so the geography of the Cold War, what was containment? That is the big question. Containment is a word, a new vocabulary word, and we're going to figure out what it means in this informational text. It was a glorious meeting on April 25th, 1945, at the Elbe River in Germany. Two powerful armies met. Coming from opposite ends of Europe, the Americans and Russians had cut Hitler's Germany in two. Now at the Elbe, soldiers from the Red Army, that is code, and I know that some people say the red cent, but in this case, it's totally different, and it's code for communism. So the Communist Army of the Soviet Union reached out their hands to their American counterparts. It was time for great happiness. World War II, the deadliest war in all of human history, was nearly over. Unfortunately, the warmth of the handshakes did not last. The Soviet Union and the United States had serious differences. Their greatest difference was over a political and economic system called communism. Okay, we have that word in our concept map, and we've got the definition right here. In its pure form, communism is a belief that private property should be replaced by community ownership. In the Soviet Union, this idea was not easily accepted by the people. Russian leaders Vladimir Lenin and Joseph Stalin, another person that we know already that you put in your concept map so far, were ruthless in their elimination of those who had different ideas about Russia's future. Wow, that's very different than how we do things in America. With democracy, we have a government for the people, by the people, and Joseph Stalin doesn't sound like he is for the people, by the people, so he's very different. It is estimated that in the 1930s, Stalin was responsible for killing more than 10 million Soviet people who he believed were in his way. Wow, that's more than people who were victims in the Holocaust, and we learned about the Holocaust last week. So that's significant to me. Soviet communists did not like capitalism, which is another word in our concept map. So it looks like if I were to make my own, I would have capitalism on two sides with the two different countries. USA. They opposed private ownership economies of the United States and its allies. Russian leaders believed that capitalism was doomed and that communism would spread throughout the world. This caused great tension and the emergence of a new kind of war, a Cold War. Mistrust ran deep. In the words of Winston Churchill, it was as if an iron curtain had been drawn between the Soviet-controlled countries in Eastern Europe and the Western democracies. So, iron curtain going right between these two countries with two different systems. Did anyone have something going on like this in their concept map?
We did.
Couple people? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How much that? Cool.
Curtain.
All right. The Soviets had suffered terribly in World War II, losing more than 27 million soldiers and civilians. That they had the most people lost in World War II than any other country. More than United States, more than Germany. And I don't think very many people know that. Stalin was determined that Germany would never be able to strike Russia again. To protect Russia, Stalin wanted a buffer zone in Eastern Europe, but he wanted more. It was no secret that Stalin and his successors wanted to expand their Soviet empire. If the Soviet policy was expansion, then American policy was containment. And those are new words to us. And we can add them to the two sides. But I need you guys to tell me, what is the United States trying to contain? Anyone? Communism, yes. And what is the Soviet Union trying to expand? Communism, right. So we see that there's a conflict of the two sides, and that is the Cold War. How much time do I have?
You're 12 minutes in.
Containment was the idea that the Soviet Union and Soviet communism should not be allowed to spread. One example of containment was the Truman Doctrine. So I'm going to add that to containment. Truman Doctrine. In 1947, President Harry Truman declared that the United States would support free peoples like those in Greece and Turkey who are being threatened by communists. The Truman Doctrine is followed by the Marshall Plan. Marshall Plan. So, Truman Doctrine was Harry Truman saying he's going to support free countries. Marshall Plan, they actually gave money. So I put dollar signs there to indicate that there was actual money being given to countries in Europe. Marshall Plan gave $12 billion in aid to help rebuild European democracies like France and West Germany. The idea was to give these countries resources so that communist ideas would not be so attractive. Which sounds a lot like propaganda. This was something that I wrote, and we've talked a lot about propaganda before. In 1947, the United States and the Soviet Union were clearly on a collision course. Stalin and his successors were always looking for weak spots to push and probe to test American commitment to containment. This mini-Q features 3 occasions, and the question, the mini-Q, is what we're going to look at, all the primary source documents we're going to look at to answer this question of how the Soviet Union tested American containment policy. All right. So, does anyone want to share their concept map that they made?
Sure.
With, okay?
Great.
Yes?
Sure. Okay.
What does it look like?
Well, this. It looks like this.
Wow. Okay.
What should I do? Should I just show it on here? Is that correct? Okay. So I have the United States. The United States and the Soviet Union were the first things that I drew, and then I put capitalism and communism around them, sort of like donuts or something. And then inside of the United States, there are people, and they're saying expansion, and they're saying containment, please. And then,
cool.
And then in Russia, you find Joseph Stalin. He's saying expansion, please.
Okay, Kirsten, tell me this. After we read through that informational text. Did you make changes to your concept map?